back to Prescribing Possibility. I'm Dr. Dimna Weil, physician, master coach, writer, and someone who believes that sometimes the most powerful shifts in our lives come from the simplest practices, not necessarily the dramatic. And it's just us today. So, what I want to chat about, I want to walk you through something that I use personally and find really super helpful. It's something that I teach often, and it's something that has helped me and many others move from chaos back into calm. And it's called the calm method. I have mentioned it many episodes ago, but I think with the world as it is, I don't think it can be stated enough how it requires coming back to a practice in order to reclaim that calm and peace that we really deserve in our lives. So the calm method, calm stands for compassion, awareness, listening, and mindfulness. And so before your brain tells you that this sounds too simple to matter or that it's catchy and cheesy, I just want to lovingly challenge those thoughts, because often the things that change us most aren't actually that complicated. The part that we forget is that it's the consistency with which we use them, the intentionality that make them impactful. And they're practiced in ordinary moments right in the middle of real life chaos. So if you're like me, tend to think calm will arrive once life becomes less stressful, once that inbox is cleared out, or the kids are settled, when your relationship improves, or your schedule opens up. Sometimes we're just waiting for the sense of uncertainty to pass, which, P.S., spoiler alert, doesn't happen. Um, but if life has taught me anything, it's this: calm isn't something that we wait for. And it's not something that just arrives one day. It is something that we create. And then it is something that we practice. And often we need it most when life feels chaotic and the least calm. So the calm method was born from just that. It's not about perfection or becoming some endlessly peaceful version of yourself who never gets overwhelmed. That's not reality, and that's not me. It's about creating a tool that you can return to when your nervous system is activated, when the thoughts in your head are loud and running like a runaway train, and when life just starts feeling like it's just so much. So those four simple words, compassion, awareness, listening, and mindfulness, they are four very powerful practices. And today I'd like to walk you through what they actually look like in real life, because it's great to have theories and, cute little acronyms and such, but how to use them in the moment is really the important part of it, because if we don't necessarily consider how it applies, then it's just useless. So how we might apply it: you want to use it when your kid's melting down while you're making dinner and the phone's ringing off the hook. It's what happens when you're sitting in your car after a long day at work, trying not to cry and lose it before you walk into your house. So we're going to start with compassion, because compassion sounds lovely in theory, but many of us are much better at being compassionate towards everyone else in our lives rather than offering it to ourselves. We're incredibly skilled at being kind to our friends, our children, patients, coworkers, partners, but yet when it comes to ourselves, the voice often becomes so sharp and impatient, critical, and I would even go so far as to say cruel at times. So compassion begins with noticing that voice. So maybe you forgot something important, and immediately your brain says, ugh, unbelievable. Why am I like this? I always do these sorts of things. And for example, maybe you're exhausted, and instead of resting, you tell yourself you should be handling things better. Or maybe you're struggling emotionally and your first instinct is judgment rather than understanding. I often ask people this simple question: what would you say to someone you love? Would you say that to somebody that you cared about? Would you speak to your best friend that way? Or would you say that to your child? Usually the answer is no, right? So why do we allow that voice to speak so harshly to us? Compassion's not, letting yourself off the hook or avoiding responsibility. It's simply just replacing the self-criticism, that critic that just can go on and on at any moment. It's replacing that with self-support. It's saying to yourself, yeah, this is hard. It's hard right now. And I still am worthy of my own kindness. It's speaking to yourself like you're someone that you actually care about. One of my favorite, really simple practices is super awkward word, but it's mirror self talk. And I know it does sound weird. It sounds awkward, and you probably are going to resist it. But there's really something powerful about looking yourself in the eye in the mirror and saying, you're doing your best. You are allowed to take a rest. You're allowed to just be. You are enough. And when you do this, it interrupts the automatic criticism and that critic that's in our internal dialogue, and it replaces it. It creates a different internal dialogue. I encourage you to give that a go. Next is awareness, and that's kind of just stepping out of the day-to-day autopilot that most of us are functioning in. So much of our life is lived outside of our conscious awareness. We move from task to task, meeting to meeting, from one obligation to another, barely noticing what's happening around us, let alone what's happening inside us, right? Until we're already completely overwhelmed. And so awareness is asking us to just pause and notice, what am I feeling right now? Where is that stress showing up in my body? What thoughts have been running the show today? And get curious about it, right? Not for judgment's sake, but for curiosity. Perhaps you'll notice, your shoulders have been tight since 8 o'clock this morning, or your jaw is clenched. Perhaps you've been holding your breath while answering emails. It's interesting because sometimes it will show up in our lives like irritation, and you get irritated with people in your family, in your home, and maybe the irritation is not really about the dishes in the sink, right? But it's about the fact that you're emotionally depleted and you haven't had 5 quiet minutes to yourself all week. So awareness creates the opportunity and the possibility of making a choice. So without awareness, we react, right? When something kind of jolts us. When we cultivate awareness, we have that opportunity to respond instead of react. So, one of the simplest ways to practice this is through just taking walks, awareness walks. You go outside, no podcast listening, no phones, no phone calls or texting, and you're not going to multitask. You are just going to walk around and notice, feel the breeze on your skin, notice the sounds around you, the leaves as they move in the breeze, the sound of the boats out on the bay or on the lake. Pay attention to the colors and the light and the temperature. So it's letting your body just remember the here and the now. It brings our focus from all the thoughts that are in our head that are anticipating the things that might happen or might go wrong, because we're never thinking about all the things that'll go right. Tell me where I'm wrong. But if we can just take that from up here in our brains and drop it down into like, what's going on right now? What is, how is my body feeling? How am I feeling? What am I noticing? If you're not able to get outside on a regular basis, you're tied to the desk like so many other people. I love the five senses reset. So you can do this a lot of different ways. Some people will say start with five things you can see, four things you can hear, and so on and so forth. I just pick three. So what are three things you can see, three things you can hear, three things you can feel, three things you can smell, and if possible, something you can taste. And so it is simple, it's fast, and it's completely grounding when worry, unrest, anxiety starts taking over. So the next part is listening. And listening sounds super obvious, but true listening is actually pretty rare. We're hearing a lot of things as we go about our days, but listening is an attunement, it's a focus. And so most of us are either waiting for our turn to speak or we're trying to solve a problem before the other person has even finished their sentence. Listening's about presence. It's about giving your full attention and not half listening while checking your phone or mentally writing your grocery list. And before I go on, I'm not meaning to shame anybody. We all do this. Multitasking is kind of worn like a badge of honor in our culture. And I just want to suggest that maybe we need to reevaluate that a little bit. This idea of listening and listening deeply, it matters in our relationships, in our parenting, in medicine. And it really is important in how we listen to ourselves. And, sometimes the person that we are least willing to listen to is ourself. We override our exhaustion. We dismiss our intuition. We ignore the grief that we have stored up over time. We have a tendency to minimize what our body's trying to tell us because we're so busy performing. We want to put on a good show. We're competent. We can handle it. We don't need anyone's help. And really, that's so far from the truth. Listening asks, what is actually true and going on with me right now? So maybe your body is saying, I need rest, or your emotions are saying, I'm not really angry, I'm actually really hurt. And so in conversations with others, mindful listening can be absolutely transformational. This is a nice thing you can try if you're feeling called to do so. Next time someone's talking to you, resist the urge to interrupt or fix or formulate a response. Literally just listen. Let your intention be to give all of your attention to that person. And you'll be amazed how that simple shift changes your connection in absolutely stunning ways. And finally, we're going to talk a little bit about mindfulness. So, mindfulness is often misunderstood. People often think it's something that requires an hour of meditation, a perfectly quiet room, or an altar, a cushion. I don't know. We can pick all sorts of things. Most of us just don't live in that world or in that place. Some people do, and that's great for them, but it's not available to everybody. It doesn't sound appealing to a lot of people. So mindfulness is simply returning to the present moment, and that can be done in a lot of different ways. So it's the practice of being here instead of mentally living in the past and ruminating over things, and rather than that catastrophic thinking about the what ifs of the future. And those of us who have been raised in the culture of medicine, that's like a huge one because that's essentially what we're trained to do. You have to be thinking 5 steps down the road. Well, if this happens, this is what I'll do. And if this happens, this is what I'll do. And this is how I'll handle it. And that's exactly how we're trained. And that's how we take good care of people. But when we use that against ourselves and we catastrophize about things that may never happen, it really does catch up with us. And so that practice of just being and being in the here and the now, it helps to bring your nervous system back from that primal survival mode. And it reminds your body that in this moment, right now, you're safe. And one of the ways we can just get into the present moment is to utilize some of the many options that are out there. One is just the 4x4 breathing or box breathing. You inhale for 4 counts, you hold for 4 counts, you exhale for 4 counts, and you hold again for 4. And then you repeat that for 2 or 3 minutes. And it, again, sounds super simple and almost too simple, but it works because it's a hack on your autonomic nervous system. It regulates it. It signals safety and creates that space between this stimulus and that reactivity that we're prone to. Box breathing is super useful. Can be used before difficult conversations, or I have done it before speaking engagements, while in between patient encounters that have been a little trying, before I respond to a heavy conversation with my daughter. Sometimes it's standing in the bathroom or the pantry, hiding from everyone who's at the house, for like a minute or two, because sometimes that's what mindfulness actually looks like. It is literally just being in that space of your body and what is going on in the here and the now. So another simple practice, which takes a little bit of getting used to and a little trial and error, but it's softening your gaze. So when stress is super high, our bodies tighten up, our eyes narrow, our breath gets shallow. Even physically just softening your eyes and the muscles around your eyes, unclenching your jaw, just lowering your shoulders can signal to your nervous system that there's no need for the threat response, that threat response can ease up. And so what I love most about the calm method is that it doesn't require perfect conditions. It doesn't require anything. You don't need to do a retreat, although they're very nice. You don't need to slot time on your calendar for it, although you could. And you don't need to get better or come out of it, whatever it is that's weighing on you, before you use it. You can practice compassion while you're standing in your kitchen overwhelmed. You can practice awareness in the parking lot at Target. You can practice listening during a hard conversation with your teenager, and practice mindfulness in the grocery store checkout line or at the YMCA in the lap lanes in the pool. This is real life work, and it's not glamorous. It's not performative. It is deeply practical. I have found it to be really, really useful. And over time, these small little moments change how you experience your life. They will help you move from that anticipatory anxiety in the future and that rumination on things in the past. It will help you move from reacting to things to being able to respond, to shift from self-criticism to self-trust. And you build that self-trust. And the calm method helps us to go from chaos in our world and in our nervous systems to regulation. We can shift out of that survival mode into something more steady. And I want to be clear, this is not about never feeling anxious or never feeling stressed. A stress response, it's part of being human. It's physiologic. Life is still going to be hard. It's going to be life, right? We're still going to be lifing, and hard things will still happen to us. But the goal is not to eliminate stress. That's an unattainable goal, and we're setting ourselves up for failure if that's what we hope to do. The goal is to build our capacity to meet those moments when we're being challenged, when the challenging times, and to meet it without abandoning ourselves, without the time of just forgetting who we are, what we need most, showing up with that openness to care for ourselves. And so that's where the calm lives. It's not the absence of chaos. It's not the absence of the life being very lifey. It's shifting our relationship to it. And so that's why I created the Calm Method workbook. I wanted something practical, something simple, something you could actually use when life feels overwhelming. And it's a tool that'll help you reconnect with yourself and remember that peace isn't gone. It's always accessible. Anytime, any place, in the midst of any situation. So inside the workbook, We'll walk through each part of the method with exercises that you can use. There's reflection prompts, simple ways you can bring more calm into your day. And please remember that it is not meant to be another thing to do. It's not another thing on your to-do list to cross off. It's just meant to be supportive and meant to be a reminder, a way back to yourself. So if this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to just download the Calm Method workbook. It's free. It was created with so much love and intention for moments exactly like the ones we've talked about today, and for all the other things that just pop up out of nowhere. You can find the link in the show notes, and I truly hope that it can become a resource that you can return to often and share with others as you wish. Because calm's not reserved for people with their lives put together, with easier lives. Calm is available to every single one of us. It belongs to you too. Thanks for being here with me today. And thank you for letting me be a part of your journey back to yourself. Until next time, bye-bye.
Thanks for sharing your time with me here on Prescribing Possibility. I hope today's conversation offered you a breath of fresh air, a new perspective, or even just a moment of calm in the chaos of life. If this episode resonated with you, pass it along to a friend or a colleague. You never know who might need a little more harmony in their life today. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your questions, or topics you're curious about. Reach out to me anytime on Instagram or LinkedIn at dimtnawhile, or send me an email at podcast@dimtnawhile.com. Until next time, give yourself the grace to grow, the space to rest, and the courage to imagine what's next.